Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Emor, and I'd like to focus on chapter 23, a central chapter in this Torah portion. And of course, it's a wonderful chapter because it lists all the holidays. Now, we have a number of places in the Bible where we have these holidays either listed or different holidays discussed at different times. But this is a comprehensive list. And it begins, of course, with the Sabbath, which is not technically a holiday, but it is a holy day. And then goes on to talk about the festivals of the Lord in verse 4. And we have the full list. Passover. After Passover, we talk about the bringing of the Omer, the barley offering, after which we begin to count 7 weeks. That brings us to the next holiday, which is Shavuot, or Pentecost. Then we have the next holiday is of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, which actually here is called the day of Festival of Trumpets, because we blow the trumpets. Following that is Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement. And following that is Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, in each of these cases, there's a very short description of the holiday. It is not comprehensive. And one of the things that's very interesting is that in none of these holidays is there a historical reference. For example, Passover. Passover is a holiday that is more historical than any other holiday we have. It represents, it's a festival that celebrates the salvation, the exodus from Egypt. And everything about this holiday is commemorating that exodus. And yet in the description here in chapter 23, Leviticus, there's absolutely no mention of the historical roots of this holiday, but it suffices to tell us about the fact that we eat matzah, we eat unleavened bread, and the sacrifices that we bring. In all of these holidays, there's mention of sacrifices, and in some cases, mentions of sacrifices that relate to a particular agricultural time of the year. For example, the barley offering has to do with the fact that that is the time of the barley harvest. The first grain to be harvested in the spring is the barley, and so that is connected with Passover. In Shavuot, we have later harvest, we have the wheat, and we have the first fruits, and it continues, okay? This is how this whole list is done until we get to verse 39. And verse 37, by the way, seems to sum up the chapter, except it's not the last verse of the chapter, but it sums up, and it says, these are the festivals or the set times of the Lord that you shall celebrate as sacred occasions, okay? And then, and it's, just kind of summarizes in that, and then we get to verse 39. But, okay, on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the harvest of the land, you shall observe the festival of the Lord 7 days, a complete rest on the first day and a complete rest on the 8th day. Now, we already mentioned this holiday. This holiday is the Feast of Tabernacles. We mentioned it earlier in verses 34 and 30 through 36. Why are we doing this again? Suddenly, there's something about the Feast of Tabernacles that is different, that is special. And indeed, we have some additional details in these following verses, in verses 39 through 43. First of all, we have a phrase here that we haven't seen before. Before we talk about, this is the day of the holiday. A holiday, the word in Hebrew for holiday is chag. And we have this as a holiday of, or festival of the Lord, and we have that many times. But in this little postscript about the Feast of Tabernacles, we have the verb version of the word chag, tachogu, you shall celebrate. So there's a focus here, not just on the fact that it is a holiday, but that you need to celebrate the holiday, or even rejoice in the holiday. And in fact, the word for happiness shows up here, especially in verse 40. It says, and you shall be happy before the Lord your God for 7 days. Here, unlike any of the other holidays, we have a specific commandment to be happy, which is in and of itself an interesting thing. How can you command someone to be happy? It's not, well, we do have this. We have this idea. It's a few times in the Bible where God says, you shall be happy. So I guess happiness is not just how you naturally feel, but you are able to, or you are expected to put yourself in a happy frame of mind when the time is appropriate. Okay, so what about, and of course, by the way, and at the end of this section, we have a historical reference, okay? We have, starting in verse 42, you shall dwell in booths or in huts for 7 days. Every citizen of Israel shall dwell in huts. And that, by the way, the Hebrew word for that is Sukkot, which is where we get the name of the holiday. In order that generations should know that God here is talking, that I settled the children of Israel in huts, in Sukkot. When I took them out of the land of Egypt, I am the Lord your God. Okay? We talked about Passover, and we didn't even mention the Exodus. And here, we're mentioning the historical root of this holiday is the fact that we sat in huts in the desert. Now, if you ask me, if I had to measure, what is the more significant historical event? The actual Exodus from Egypt, which is not mentioned in this series, and yet here, this need for an addendum to actually talk about this historical root. But I think here that the message is amazing. I think here that the historical event that we're talking about is an ongoing event. It is from the time they left Egypt. Throughout that time that they were in the desert, God put them in huts. Now, there are commentators that say, what do you mean huts? Like, what's the big deal? So they had tents. What exactly they had? But there are those who say, no. It's not the huts themselves. It's representing the protection of the Lord. The clouds of glory and the pillars of fire and this whole divine protection that God uses to protect the nation of Israel for its entire time, all those 40 years in the desert. This in and of itself is not just a significant historical event, but it's something that is significant to us, to our faith and to our relationship with God. A one-time historical event is a boom and it's over, and you remember it, and it's significant. But here we're talking about an ongoing process, a process that is very important for us to remember. It's very important for us to be happy and to rejoice about. And it's very interesting, I think, that it's in this holiday, the holiday represents ongoing protection of God to the nation of Israel. This is where we rejoice. And it is special. It is an ongoing celebration. It is something that maybe, when you suddenly are released, you suddenly liberated from slavery, of course you're going to rejoice and you're going to be happy and you're going to rejoice. But sometimes it's harder to remember to rejoice and to be grateful for something that becomes your reality. For 40 years, this is your reality. You're in this desert and God is protecting you and it becomes life. Do you remember that every single day God was there protecting you? And sometimes those are the things that are most important for us to remember. And if we think about it, those are the types of things that God is there for us all the time that should give us the greatest source of joy, happiness, and celebration. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video. And we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below as well as on the notification bell. And that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you and have a wonderful day.